It's 5:30. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and then get started. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items, including the meeting agenda, the March financial summary fund balance statement, minutes of the March 19th, 2020 regular meeting, payment of monthly bills, and approval of updated substitute teacher listing, and we are adding an item D, summer school day adjustments. Does anyone want to make the?
We can pull off the substitute teacher list. I apologize, I missed that. We don't have any.
Took that off. Kenny makes the motion.
Second.
Michael seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carries 7-0, but I need to do roll call vote. Dina?
Here?
No, yes.
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 Okay, sorry, yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Michael? Myself, yes. Mark?
Yes.
Kenny? Yes.
Yes.
Passes, carries 7-0. Next thing on our agenda will be the administration reports.
Okay, you have the principal director reports in your packet. They really didn't have anything new to add because obviously we've not been in school. So I'm just going to go over a couple of things with you tonight. First of all, I want to brag on our cafeteria staff. We have fed over 20,000 meals in the last month. At times there have been over 1,000 going out at one time when we feed, because we feed a couple days at a time on our buses. So we've Wednesday we fed 362 kids, each got 4 meals. So your 1,200, math guy, 1,400 meals somewhere in there are going out the door in 20 minutes. So they've done a remarkable job, and they are staying at it. And they're committed to finish. So, north of 20,000 meals is a lot. Our bus drivers have come in. They know where their kids are. They've done a good job. When I add somebody to their list, they're calling that parent, telling them what time they're going to be there. They're helping me sometimes figure out where that kid lives, because lots of times I get an email with, that's about all I get. So I have 2 or 3 of them I call and say, okay, here's the kid, here's the parent, help me figure out where they live. So they have jumped in, just trying to brighten families' day. Our teachers and staff, our aides are volunteering. When we send out a sheet, like we sent out one today, and I guarantee it's full, of who will ride buses next week with the drivers, it fills up. Mr. Dalton sends one out about food drop-off. We do food drop, they can drive through the line and pick up food as well. It fills up immediately. So our staff is on board and have worked really hard during this. They're developing assignments. We're sending some assignments electronically for those kids that can get electronic. We're sending packets home. They're coming in and helping copy those packets, helping organize. It's just been remarkable the way our staff, contractor staff, everybody has linked arms and jumped into this thing together to make it better for our families in this unfortunate time. So that's the first thing I want to say is I just applaud them for what they've done. So it has been remarkable. So high school prom met with Dr. Nash, the prom sponsors, and student council officers last week about prom. It was originally scheduled, I think, next week, and then got moved to May 9th because the venue canceled. We're going to do May 9th here. Obviously, that's still an issue with the governor's order, stay-at-home order. We're trying to wait till that expires to see if there's still some restrictions on the number of people that can be in one place. They absolutely want to have prom. So we all agreed that we're going to wait and see into May to see what happens with the stay-at-home order, although it was extended today, but even those social gatherings. But we plan on having a prom. Those kids are excited about that, and they absolutely want to have it. We want to get it to them. Dr. Nash and I are meeting with senior class officers next week to talk about graduation. We currently have graduation scheduled for May 15th, which was our scheduled last day of school. We've not changed that date at this point. Again, we're going to wait and see what the governor's order tells us past May 3rd. But we will have some type of graduation ceremony for those kids. If we have to push it into June, we'll push it into June. But we want those kids' input because really it's about them. It's not about us. We can show up anywhere at any point and pull that off. So we're going to work with them to get that scheduled. So that's the update on prom and graduation. So any questions about those two things? Okay. Summer school. So we sent out a survey. We're going to change summer school dates later, but we sent out a survey to our staff early this week about, we'd already sent out, we knew teachers wanted to work summer school, but whether they would be interested in teaching summer school in June, face-to-face or virtual, and if they would be interested in teaching in July, face-to-face or virtual. So we've got lots of those responses back. Our plan is to have summer school, whether it be virtually or face-to-face, depending on what we can do, for several reasons. Because we need to have it for kids. Parents depend on it. We depend on it as a district financially. We need to have summer school. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but it also, with as much school as we've missed already, it will help us meet the needs of our kids if they've missed some academic skills and get them ready for next school year. So we will be having summer school. We just can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like at this point in time. You know, it may be virtual in June and seated in July. We just don't know. And we know that we'll have more kids if it's seated than we will virtual. Kids want to be here. That's probably the biggest thing we get back from our feeding program is kids wanting to come back to school. So I'm just telling teachers and parents and bus drivers that are out there that, hey, I'm ready to come back to school. Can I come back? So I got a phone call from her grandma the other day that we added her grandson to the feeding program because he was mad because his kindergarten classmates were getting meals anyway. So we added him to the list to make him happy. So anyway, all right, probably the worst thing I'm going to talk about tonight is the state budget and what that looks like currently. Yeah, go ahead and bring that up. I think there's a lot of unknowns. I don't anticipate the legislature having a May budget done, which they're mandated to have done by May 8th, but they're already talking about having a June or July session. So I think they will probably just roll over the current budget that they have in May, so they meet that constitutional requirement. But there's a lot of unknowns right now. So if we look at April, we haven't actually got our April payment. You're going to see a little bit of a difference. From March, we had 1,414 weighted ADA. So if we, just remind everybody that weighted ADA is our average daily attendance of students that are attending school on a regular basis. And that also includes 60 kids from summer school. So when I say 60 kids, it's more than 60 bodies. That means there was 60 times 1,044 hours attended last summer. Okay, we saw that March payment was based on an estimated enrollment as of January 21st. We got hit pretty hard in the spring with the flu. So our ADA dropped. So our new estimate from August 15th to March 12th, which was the last day we were in attendance, went from 1414 to 1403. So the state adequacy target, this line number 3, stayed at 6375, and we feel like that's going to stay at 6375 for the remainder of the year. But that reduces our revenue about $74,000, 73 and some change, I think, which is still over our projected revenue. So we're still, we were 496 over our projected, now we're 422 over our projected. So I don't have any real concerns about this year's revenue. We'll see some cost savings this spring we don't have trips going out. We save in sub costs. Our supply lines, we're going to save in our supply lines. So there's lots of places we're going to save this spring. My real concern is moving after July 1. And here's a couple of reasons. We see, if you look on line 13, Proposition C, dollars. So we budgeted last year, and I can't hardly see that, but it's right at $1,378,498, I believe. Is that correct? My eye doctor appointment got postponed, so I haven't got classes. So that is a 1% sales tax that's dedicated to education specifically within our state. Okay, so every time you buy something, 1% of that tax goes straight to K-12 education. So I am everybody I've talked to, I'm talking to Desi, we're going to budget approximately a 15% drop in
Just that sales.
just that line item, that Prop C line item. So if you look at that, that's going to be about $160,000 right in there, maybe a little north of that, 180,000. So I believe we'll see that. It may not be 15, it may be 10. The good thing about Proposition C is lots of sales tax, they don't tax raw food. So food you buy at the grocery store. There's lots of sales tax that don't tax raw food. This Prop C, or this 1%, does tax raw food. So people are still eating. They're going to the grocery stores. They're buying food. They may not be eating out, but we're still collecting that 1% on that raw food at the grocery store. So that's really hard to tell. You can only fund what is received. So the state can only distribute Prop C dollars as they receive it. So you see that fluctuates every month. We went from 107 to 138. So that was January. So you really saw the February payment was right around, was Christmas dollars, was December dollars that came in. So you'll see some fluctuations in that as the year goes. They're usually a month behind. We didn't get December's payment in January. We don't get it really in February, if that makes sense to anybody. So they are talking about trying to keep the SAT at 6375, which is what it was scheduled to be for next year. And if they do, that will be a blessing. I think we'll see some CARES Act money help prop that up, some federal stimulus dollars that are coming to the state. But they, in the past, the formula is what they want to keep fully funded. If they have to start pulling money from categoricals, we anticipate some drop in some other areas. Transportation dollars will probably get dropped a little bit, even though if you remember, I talked about they requested $60 million new money in transportation. Still not fully funded anyway. We're still going to provide the service we provide. I think we're right at 20% funding at this point. So it won't be a large chunk of money that we see put up there. Classroom trust fund dollars come from gambling money. Casinos have been shut down for 3 weeks now. I think the monthly revenue from casinos is about $33 million. So it's taking a significant hit. Classroom Trust Fund goes into the formula. So the $43,000 is part of our formula dollars. It's just paid for out of a different line item. It's paid for out of Classroom Trust. They'll still figure out, if they want to fully fund the formula, they're still going to have to figure out how to make that same payment. They'll just have to do that. They'll have to replace it with something else, which is either that CARES Act funding or general revenue. So that was a lot. So the CARES Act, money coming from the federal government is distributed through, the way they're distributing it is through our title funding. It's not federal dollars per se with the restrictions that title has on it. Mr. Dalton handles title. They're simply using the title allocation as a way to distribute it to schools. So it's 82% of what we receive. They predict 82% of what we receive in title dollars. We received $550,000 or so this year in Title I. We're predicting this CARES Act funding to be about $480,000, which is going to help with this. What those restrictions are, we don't know what those spending restrictions are. Line 12, there are several of them, but the last one, and again, it's not set in stone yet, was very vague. It looked like you could spend it on whatever you needed to spend it on. But to keep people employed, basically, is what it said. So it's going to be interesting. So a couple of those requirements are that you keep, in order to receive it, you had to keep your employees employed and your contractors employed. We met all of those requirements. We've kept everybody at full payment. And we don't anticipate having to do anything different. So we're lucky. We have fund balances. If we do see a shortfall next year, we can live on those fund balances for a year if that's what we have to do. We've worked really hard to build those up over the last 4 or 5 years. Is that how long I've been here? Yeah, we've worked pretty hard. We've brought those up over 5%. So I appreciate your support in doing that, but that's what reserves are for. No, we don't want to cut programs. You know, we had a discussion about our nursing program that we're really excited about, adding our CNA program at the high school. We still plan to do that. It's a nominal amount of money that to do that, we just have to expand somebody's hours just a little bit in order to provide that service to our high school kids. I have a meeting with salary committee next week. You know, I believe we need to, at minimum, step the schedule, give everybody their step. When you freeze the salary schedule, it causes issues for years to come. So I'm going to meet with them and we'll bring you a recommendation. We won't be putting a bunch of money on the base, but I think we should at least step the schedule. We saw a 4.9% increase in our insurance rates for next year. That's something I would like to look at as well. So lots of information to come. We still don't have a great picture. It seems like Mr. Dalton and I are on conference calls, Zoom conference calls, or Google Hangout, or go-to meetings 3 or 4 times a week. He's on some for one reason, I'm on for a reason. So just it's everybody in the state is trying to work together to figure out this problem. It's probably the most, we always talk, but we've probably had more conversation in the last month than we've had all year put together. Just everybody trying to share ideas. So any questions about any of that? That was a lot of information. And if you don't work with it every day, it's a little bit Greek, I know. We're going to be okay for this year. We're going to have to be fiscally responsible for next year, but I anticipate us being fine then too. That makes sense. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to start kind of where he started. Just thanking our folks, our staff, our parents. This is the only thing I can think of since I've been in education where everybody involved is doing it for the first time. Yeah. So that's included lots of plans that we've had to adjust. there are things that you've got to make a decision in a hurry, and you don't have anything to base it on. There's no previous experience to draw from. Been lots of opportunities for people to get frustrated on both sides, and just as it happened. And I mean that from teachers to parents
in weeks,
I mean,
which happens.
You think of the number of different kinds of interactions that we're having to have. Just have never happened before. And it, like I said, just lots of opportunities for frustration, and it just hasn't happened. We've always known we had a great staff. Somewhere there early in that, as we started trying to tackle this, I've been more proud to be a part of the district than whenever we have jumped in. Dr. Dial mentioned it. We send out surveys. It is still a joke. I appreciate that. Still have their sense of humor. They laugh at Mr. Dalton's surveys because I'm always trying to gather information. But it's minutes. It's literally minutes. Those sign-up sheets are full. I think just on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday right now, we need 15 volunteers. Is that what roughly?
We need 12 on buses.
Okay, so we're 17 every day is what we've got. We've got 70 people who have said they're willing to do that. So we've got more folks wanting to help than what we can do. The ones that aren't helping with the food distribution, they're in the buildings organizing things. It's just an undertaking. It just is. I'm going to talk a little bit on the instructional side, what that looks like. I think maybe a question that was asked when we started this last time, or last month. When we started, roughly, it was 65% of our folks said they had some sort of internet access. I don't think that has changed. What we have seen is a lot of those folks that, when we do have internet, it's not reliable enough for what we're trying to do. We want paper copies of whatever the work is also. So that's requiring flexibility on students' parts, parents' part, certainly on the teacher side of it as they build those lessons. You were asking about how we're holding students accountable in that. And that bottom line, when it gets down to, we're not able to deliver instruction the same to every student. We're just not. Some are able to have access to internet that works high speed all the time, and they're having one kind of interaction. You've got some that I've got hit and miss internet access. That looks different for that child. We've got some that don't have it at all. And they're trying to take paper packets, and our teachers are trying. They're trying to write out notes, examples, just whatever they can on those packets to help a student be able to tackle that. But it just does not look the same. From student A to student B to student C, it just doesn't. So what that looks like, nobody's going to be held back because of what this situation is. For the buildings, we talk about grades and GPA, earning credits at the high school level. Basically students are taking what they had at the end of third quarter when we were all still here, getting the same instruction. Now a student that was struggling has an opportunity to improve that grade. Nobody's going to lose ground on their grade because of where we are now. You go to the other buildings, elementary, they're what we call standards based. They're just keeping track of what skills those students have mastered. We recognize, and everybody in the state's in the same boat. So many people are nationwide. There are some skills that we are not able to teach this year the same way that we have done in years prior. For us, what's that look like here? I heard Dr. Hall talking about it yesterday. Hey, their third grade team's going to sit down with the fourth grade team, just as an example, and here's where we got to. Here's what we're going to have to pick up. It's just going to be sharing the resources. It's going to be, we always try to do this anyway. I know I've used this point of conversation a lot. What this has brought into focus is some things that, hey, we've done now we can clearly see why we want to do these things. You know, we try to assess students at the beginning of the year anyway to see where they are. You know, our students come back at different places. We have people move in, people move out. You know, kids aren't always at the same place when school starts. That's going to be even more critical this year. You know, it is just an undertaking. But again, that part I want to talk about it locally. Just our teachers, our kids, our parents have been great as far as we're tackling something we've not faced before. So just the patience and understanding on that's been tremendous. From the state level, just some questions you might have. Things that immediately pop up are graduating seniors. I know one of the first things I thought of was A+. The state adjusted what those requirements look like. You know, we've got lots of seniors that had already completed those 50 tutoring hours. We have many that were doing it this last semester that would have had plenty of time to get it done. Now there's no way to do that. Well, the state adjusted that. That requirement was 25 hours. As I'm going back through that list, I think all of our seniors are going to be in good shape as far as the reason that we can get there is not the hours. You know, if we did have a kid or two that were still short, we're looking at ways, whether that's with our summer school online, that option's out there. The state canceled our testing. You know, spring testing statewide has been canceled. So a question that goes to at the high school level, there are required assessments. Students can't graduate prior to this unless they had a math test, an English test, a science test, and a history test. There are some required assessments. The state has waived that. This year's seniors, you know, and typically students have completed that before their senior year, but for those that we had that might have missed it, whether they moved in or whatever the reason might be, that is waived. For students in the future, they're not going to have to go back and take. So if I were in Algebra 1 this year, that's an assessment we typically take. They're not going to have to go back next year when they're in geometry or whatever the next math class is and take that Algebra 1 assessment. It's not fair to anybody involved. So the state has made sound decisions that make sense when it comes to what we're facing. Those students aren't going to be held accountable and have to go back and take something, an assessment that they already had that course.
A couple of those requirements is the commissioner has the power to waive days. So she is waived until the end of your calendar year. So every August, Mrs. Sterling uploads our school calendar. So it says we get out of school May 15th. We have to keep providing instruction up until May 15th. We can't end May 7th. In order for her to waive days, we have to, I'm sure we will get a verification that I'll have to verify that we provided instruction until May 15th. So just, that's one of those requirements. And that in order to be funded for all of those days, you have to do that as well.
Another thing that really doesn't impact us right now, but next year, I always do that presentation on our APR. It's basically our school report cards. We won't have one for next year just because the assessments are such a big part of that. So that won't come up until November, December is typically when we do that. We just won't have that. You know, everybody in Missouri's in the same boat, facing the same gaps that we know that are there. Whether just in where our students are typically at this time, or the assessment piece of it when we're measuring school performance. So that's just going to look different moving forward. But any questions? Anything I left out on the instructional side?
Can we or will we do some assessments when school starts so we know where these kids are?
Locally, yes. Now, are you talking at the state required assessments?
I was just talking about us.
Yes, yes. And that's, I did a poor job of describing that. When we, you know, you'll hear us talk about diagnostic tests or formative assessments. Teachers talk about pre-tests and post-tests. That's what we're talking about. Something we've done. It's crystal clear now why that's important. Yeah. Yeah.
even more imperative now.
It does. It just brings it into focus. Hey, here's why this is important, because they're not, if I've been in a routine on a grade level and the teacher before me and the grade level prior, hey, I know exactly where they are. This year it's just different. It's just not going to be what, that's what we're doing right now as we continue to try to offer instruction in the summer school. We're trying to make that gap as small as possible. But we know it absolutely does not look like what it typically does. That's a good question. Anything else?
I do think, so I have Facebook, but my wife says people that she has friends with on Facebook that have kids at school appreciate their teacher more than they think. Kids that are having to teach them at home. Mark and I think had that conversation the other day.
Yeah, I think I've got a better appreciation for teachers.
So it's different. My college student is having to do online. They send her home same time we stopped going to school, and she says every day there's a reason I don't take as many online classes. I prefer face to face.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and start our action items, state and federal assurances.
So it's just an assurance statement that we have to do every year that says that we will spend the money the way the state and federal dollars that we receive, that we will spend it in specific ways. We follow the guidelines. Mrs. Sterling only pays bills out of certain accounts because that's where we're told that they can spend them out of. We have a book that is very specific about how money can be spent, and we follow that, and then our auditors check that as well. So we just need to adopt that statement.
Need a motion and vote to approve the state and federal assurances as presented. Kenny makes the motion, have a second. Dan seconds. Any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Dan?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Michael? Yes. Myself, yes. Mark?
Yes.
Kenny?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Next is the guidance counseling review.
All right. I'm going to try to go through that, those days, and I'll try to answer any questions that you got. We did visit with them on a conference call earlier in the week as they kind of put that together. I'm going to go through some highlights, some things that jumped out at me that it's critical that I know those ladies take on. The thing I think about, more and more demands of those folks as we talk about mental health issues and trauma informed, just some of the requirements that have come down from the state in the last few years. Those ladies in every building, and it looks different in every building, they're tackling the same things. They try to do as much as they can with small groups, coping skills, conflict resolution. They've taken on a program a couple of years ago, the suicide prevention program that we took on, and those ladies going together every year, and they're all available in whatever building that's taking place in on those days that goes on. Something else they do a ton of work with, you may see ICAP in there. They've done the career planning for years. Just is going to take on a greater emphasis moving forward with the way schools are measured. But as you look through some of this, they start exposure for students to just career opportunities and things that are out there in lower elementary. Just letting kids know about different jobs. You think a career day and things like that. Start doing interest inventories in the middle school. Then it gets pretty formal as they get upper middle school. If a student says, here's a career I'm really interested in, they're helping those students map out, well, here's a path you could take to get there. Same for me. Student changes their mind, great, here's what that would look like if you wanted to go into that field. Just do a lot of different kinds of work there with our students as they progress developmentally and through the grades. Do a ton of work with our testing. I know if you look through that program review, those ladies, what they would love to do is spend their time in the classrooms, helping kids deal with issues, whether, again, some like conflict resolution, just developmental skills as students get older. But just on the logistics on some of that, they help us every year with the assessments. They do the training in those buildings for those teachers on the state assessments. Just tackle a lot of different tasks. Dr. Dow may want to jump in on this last point. I think every year when we go through and those ladies talk about strengths and weaknesses and look back at the feedback, and this is what I was thinking about. Basically, the state has mandated additional things through the years that those counselors are responsible for. And we're always trying to look at ways, hey, we can get them additional help.
More support.
And that's something that I know those ladies mention every year. Weaknesses, basically, just more time to do all the things that they feel are necessary for them to try to tackle.
So we've had a halftime counselor at the high school since Mr. Martin retired, and as you remember this spring, he retired again permanently this time. So we're still having that conversation. We looked at ways whether we looked at the elementary specifically, because at the elementary, the counselor deals with not discipline behavior, but more social emotional behavior probably than at the other levels. So we looked at providing her, looking to help provide some support there through an interventionist. And then at the high school and middle school level, we looked at, is that something that we need to look to add a full-time counselor between the high school and the middle school? Split their time to help both of those. I'm really focused on the ICAP and trying to help kids do career planning and some other mental health issues as well. So when we met with them earlier this week, those are new positions, and that's not something that at this point we're pursuing. They understand that. It's something that we absolutely need to pursue. And as the state budget develops, we're going to continue to look at that to see if there's room in next year's budget for it. But if we don't get it done next year, there's absolutely something I think we need to do the following year. And I've made that commitment to them, and I think it's the right thing to do. It is top on the list. And depending on where things are, I think we have to take care of the programs we have first, because it would be a significant expense, but it's important. And I think that's something that we have to look at.
Any questions about that program review?
They do a good job, and they work together well, especially in the suicide prevention classes that they teach. I like, because they're all there, and they all are working with each other. And we've had some crisis in our district in the last couple of years. They are there for each other every time, and they do a good job of working with each other.
Thank you. Need a motion and vote to approve the guidance council and review as presented. Randy makes the motion. Mark seconds. Any other discussion? All those, roll call vote, Dan?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
And Dan?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Next is our summer capital project list.
So we look at this every spring. Last year, I had you rank them, and we were able to fit it all in the budget. I do not anticipate that happening this year. But I'm still going to send you a survey tomorrow asking you to rank these, but I thought I should explain them line by line, just to talk to you about what each one of them is. So we have been over the last, this would be the third year that we've been removing asbestos tile from the elementary. We are so we've done the 4th grade hallway and the cafeteria at the elementary. So our plan was to move up the 3rd grade hallway this year. So to remove that in the hallway and all of the classrooms, and that's a long hall. So with lots of classrooms in it, and the office, because that's part of that third grade hallway, was $40,610 for the removal of it. Remember, you have, with asbestos, they have to seal that area, they have to vent it, they have to dispose of it in a specific way, they have to wear masks and suits while they're moving it, so it is fairly expensive. And those are labor jobs, so those are union jobs, people that do that work. So then to replace, so the first two really kind of tie together, replace the third grade VCT, the elementary office carpet. It's got a little bit for that secure entry, but not a lot. And it actually falls below. To replace that would be a $23,500 expenditure. So together, to do that project alone is right at $63,000, $64,000. Then through our conversations with teachers, as we've gone around the district, Mr. Dalton and I, and then our safety and security committee was starting to look at secure main entries. And we've talked about this in the past in each of our buildings. And I think I talked about it last month as well, but an elementary secure main entry where they would actually enter, the exterior door would be unlocked, but they come into a vestibule where they couldn't go into the building or go into the office until eyes were on them and we knew who they were. Put that elementary secure main entry in is $40,000. The high school, because the high school is pretty set up for it already, is $40,000. We are expanding our preschool next year. It's been title funded in the past. It'll be district funded because we'll be able to draw ADA on those students. We anticipate having more kids in preschool next year, which is great. It's a great problem to have. We always have waiting lists for preschools. Expanding that preschool lot that's on Mansfield Road. It's right out there on the highway, right there on the main road. We took half of that, made it a lot, expanding it is another $3,000. We have some need for new and upgraded additional weight room equipment. So that's just a budget line item that's probably if I gave Coach Swafford free gratis and the coaches free gratis, that would be 5 times that much. That's a number I put on it, $5,000. Middle school gym entrance, concrete replacement. We've looked at this for several years and the board's actually approved it a couple of different times and then they couldn't get anybody to do it. I do have a solid bid from Jeremiah Tate that will do it of $30,000 to replace the middle school gym entry, all the concrete that's falling away. We patch it every year all the way out to the street and those railings of 30. So this bid is $30,000. A Bobcat, skid steer, people call it different things, for use with maintenance, helps with the playgrounds, lots of different things, lots of things we hire people to do because we don't have equipment. That's a top number. That's for a used one. I think we buy one cheaper than that, but that's just a budget number. So roof on the fitness center. So the fitness center for staff is between the weight room and our office. It's got a flat roof. You have pitched roofs on the other two. This actually isn't going to be on your survey because it's leaking bad enough. We're going to actually do that ourselves this spring. It's $2,500 and that's just materials. Our maintenance guys are going to actually do that work itself. That's something that we've got to do because it leaks. That flat roof leaks. So middle school art room relocation. So the middle school art room is fairly small. Mrs. Pinckney is our middle school art teacher and has done a fantastic job in that program this year. She has requested that she's actually talked to her neighbor teacher and they would flip classrooms. His classroom's a little bit bigger. We would have to get water and a drain in there, build some cabinets. We would build those in-house, but relocating the art room is $6,000. We have been, for the last several years, last 4 years at least that I know of, we have been replacing the ties on the playgrounds. So we have those playgrounds that hold the gravel in. Those ties have become rotted and falling down. We've been spending $8,000 a year replacing this section of playground equipment, or not equipment, but ties. And then we go to this section. We're about done with that. but I think it needs to be on the list. Middle school gym lobby and heat and air. So it quit last summer, maybe. So the lobby gets heat from the gym, because we have heat in the gym, but we don't have air conditioning in the gym. But that unit is dead, so it's sometimes a little cold in there. It's not unbearable, but it's sometimes a little chilling. To replace that unit, because it was a heat-only unit, we have to run some, and it's just as cheap to put a air conditioning heating unit in that is a heat-only. We'll have to run some additional electricity to it, but it's $13,000. Middle school library would like to replace some bookshelves. Right now, all of our bookshelves are really tall, and it makes that library feel very obstructed. The view's obstructed, you really can't see. This is actually all in-house. Our maintenance guys will build these, but it's $3,700 in material. And then the fourth grade bathroom floor replacement. Just to be honest with you, the fourth grade bathroom, which is down by the cafeteria, it's the most heavily used bathroom in the elementary. The floor is just nasty. It needs replaced. It needs to be torn out and replaced. And this would be ceramic tile on the floor and then up the walls to 3 or 4 feet, just to make it easy. We can't clean it. We can't get it clean. It looks bad. So that would be $7,300. So that is the list. So I'm going to send you a survey. You just have to rank them 1 through 13. Number 1, obviously, what you think is the most important. Like I said, we did this a year ago, and we were able to hit everything on the list. So last year we did BCT, the asbestos removal, replacement. We did bus cameras. We did playground walls. We finished the maintenance building. We did lots of everything that you guys ranked. We were able to complete on that list. So anything on there you think I'm missing, or any questions about any of those specific projects? So, and we'll go as far as we can go with the budget constraints that we currently have.
We don't need to vote on that.
We do not, there's nothing to vote on.
All right.
You would vote, when I brought it back to you for approval, then you would vote on it. We have bids on every one of those besides, like I don't have a bid on a Bobcat, weight room equipment, kindergarten wall replacement, just because we do that work, and the bookshelves, everything else we actually have bid. We've had people come look at and bid. Those are quality numbers. So,
Thank you. Last thing on the agenda is summer school dates.
we currently approved summer school dates. K-8 ran May 18th to the end of June. And the only change, and high school ran May 18th to July 31st. The only thing I'm requesting that you do is approve elementary and middle school dates from May 18th to July 31st to line up with the high school. Because we don't know what summer school is going to look like, that gives us the flexibility to change our summer school application to, if we can have a seated summer school in July, we will have it. So I just need the approval of those dates.
I need a motion to approve summer school dates as presented by Dr. Dow. Randy makes a motion. Kenny seconds. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Dina?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Michael? Yes. Myself, yes. Mark?
Yes.
Kenny? Yes. Dan?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. That concludes our agenda items for tonight. Our next regular board meeting will be May 16th.
May 16th.
May 21st. All right. Need a motion to adjourn. Michael? Dan? We'll do roll call vote. Dina?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Michael? Myself, yes. Mark?
Yes.
Kenny? Yes. And Dan.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.